So I've got some really interesting topics to discuss today, and the first one I really want to talk about is Dragon Racing, because in the news a couple of days ago, they announced that they were going to keep on creating their own powertrain for season six and season seven and season eight. Obviously, that might change depending on the next topic that we talk about. But I thought that was a not an odd decision. I just thought it was a strange decision, which is probably the same word. But at the same time, like I just feel like looking at how Dragon, obviously they've made some powertrains before, and it hasn't gone that well. And we were trying to think, looking at Venturi as a case study at this precise moment, they took on a customer team. They were creating their own powertrain. They've now gone to Mercedes, and they're doing much better. And Dragon, who have been sort of at the back of the field now for a couple of seasons, they haven't really got the ball moving, and that's. I suppose that should state some concern and thinking maybe a customer route, considering Dragon don't make any electric road cars. They're not a manufacturer in essence. I thought it was a strange decision. What do you think, Jack or Pico?
Well, yeah, it's been yeah. Well, Dragon have been in Formula E ever since the start, and nowadays it's very hard to believe that the team actually came second in season one. They and since then, I think they've just been on a steady decline since, and then the last couple seasons they've been nearish the bottom, and so yeah, it is disappointing to see a team struggling that much. I'm I'm still surprised that they are getting that they are making their own powertrains. A couple years ago, they did have a connection with Porsche. Um, However, that went away very quickly after. So yeah, it's but yeah, I'm not sure how much that would have changed had Porsche been involved. But yeah, I do feel like Dragon do need to think might need to think about maybe looking into getting some customer powertrains some point
Yeah, that,
in the future. But yeah,
that's what I was gonna move on to next with Ed. But it was interesting that you brought up the Porsche thing because it was at the same time Andretti had their tie up with BMW, and if you remember back to I think it was season three, season four, when Neil Yanni obviously did the first race in Hong Kong for Dragon, and obviously it didn't last further than that double header, and that seemed to be part of that tie up with Porsche. So Neil Yanni would drive, and you get that sort of Porsche, and then hopefully Porsche would have maybe have taken over the Dragon team, very similar to what BMW have done and Mercedes have done with HWA and BMW with Andretti, although the Andretti name's still in it. So it could have been something similar to that rather than Porsche becoming their own entry. So I don't know what happened there. But Ed, obviously, I want to bring like Virgin Racing. Obviously, Virgin Racing are in a very similar boat to Dragon. They don't create their own powertrain. Obviously, they had a customer technical or manufacturer partner before in DS, but then they went to Tech Cheetah, and now they've taken the Audi powertrain because they decided there's no point in us making our own powertrain because we don't make electric cars. I remember having that conversation in Paris with Alex Tai a couple of races before he left the sport, and he said we don't make electric cars, so for us we need to find a customer who can supply us a powertrain. And they were looking at that time who was the best powertrain at that time, and it was Audi. So they went with Audi. So what do you think, Dragon? Should Dragon maybe look to become a customer team, maybe take advantage of one of the team's better powertrains, like DS's, for example?
Well, the thing about Dragon is they've always been a fiercely independent squad. Even with that may be even the reason why that Porsche tie-up didn't happen in the way that the BMW tie-up has happened with Andretti. That Joe Penske is perhaps more of a independent sort of minded figure. The interesting thing to me is that although whilst Dragon have been uncompetitive, I think it's fair to say, although perhaps not as uncompetitive as their customer team Neo 333, but it seems to me they've gone for a lot of drivers in the last couple of years because Jerome D'Ambrosio left to go to Mahindra. They dropped Jose Maria Lopez after a couple of seasons, and he was brought in to replace Neil Yarni, who you mentioned earlier. And now they've got, of course, Brendan Hartley and Nico Miller, who I think Hartley scored a couple of points for them this season in one of the early races in Diriyah. But apart from that, they've had a pretty tricky time of it. So yeah, you would think, like you were saying about Alex Dye, that at some sooner or later Dragon have to tie up with somebody. I remember you telling me, Jack, that I can't remember when you told me this, but I remember you saying when we were writing an article or something that maybe a US manufacturer like Ford or Chevrolet would be a good choice for Dragon.
Yeah, I did. I remember because you have to think. Obviously, Jay Penske is the team sort of owner slash team principal of Dragon Racing, and obviously his father, Roger Penske, who runs obviously many IndyCar teams and NASCAR teams, even a team in Australian V8 supercars. He's got teams everywhere,
That's right.
and he uses obviously he's got a technical tie up with the car in IndyCar, for example, with Chevrolet. And in his NASCAR and I think his Australian V8 supercar, it's also Ford. So there's contacts already there within the family. So, and obviously being a US team, bringing a US manufacturer like Chevrolet or Ford, who both have massive racing pedigrees, into Formula E would be incredible. And obviously both of those companies, especially Ford, I know Chevrolet are also they've got 3 electric vehicles that they've currently made already. But so both of them are obviously looking at electric cars in the future. So it makes sense to maybe contact them and bring an American team in Dragon Racing with an American partner and move forward that way. So I honestly think that would be something that, and I think that would be something, Jack, that I'm pretty sure everyone would be happy to see Ford or Chevrolet in Formula E.
I think it would be massive. It would just add to the caliber of manufacturers that we already have in Formula E. I mean, you 4 years ago you could count how many manufacturers there were on one hand. Nowadays it's just so much more than that, uh and I think that adds to it because the main reason that these manufacturers want to come into Formula E is they want to develop the powertrains to put into their road cars after. So it would be a brilliant it'll be a brilliant stepping stone as it has been with Renault, who has now left the sport sadly, and with Nissan and with other manufacturers to just build on their electric vehicles that way.
Yeah, and obviously Dragon did have a tie-up once upon a time with Faraday Future. Now, I remember sitting in London in Season 2 in the media centre, and there was a massive presentation. You know, Jay Penske, all the board members from Faraday Future were there, and Jay Penske literally reeled off a half an hour PowerPoint explaining the step-by-step instruction of how Faraday Future was going to help Dragon Racing and the technical partnership and what that was going to lead to. Now, obviously, that didn't come to fruition because Faraday Future went bust. So you have to remember back, I think it's Season 3, the 2016-17 season, where Dragon had these amazing liveries. The Val was the white and it faded into black, and then Jerome D'Ambrosio was the other way. It was black and then it faded into white. So that was the start of their tie-up, I suppose, with Faraday Future. But Faraday Future sort of went bust, and therefore the technical partnership sort of died. And then obviously that sort of started the decline of Dragon Racing because they then lost their partner. That means they were then fighting on their own feet in a sense to get a powertrain together. And they didn't. I don't know if then they should have gone, okay, maybe we should get a customer powertrain because at least then we know a manufacturer has actually put time and effort into it. But I think there was, I don't know if it's like an arrogance in a sense, but like just to continue making your own powertrain, but to make your own powertrain for a couple of seasons now that they have, and it's not been successful. And as you said at the beginning, like Dragon were a top team. Like they finished, you wouldn't imagine that they finished second in the season 1, and I think they finished 4th. I think they lost out on 3rd in the final day of that season 2 to like a point or something to Virgin Racing. So the team looks miles off from where they were. So I really think that they should look to move towards either a customer team in the future, or because sort of bring in their own manufacturer from America, or find their own manufacturer that wants to become a manufacturer in Formula E.